Yes, so there are changes. In addition, any member of council have an item they wish added to the agenda for this evening's council? None? One. Be a short meeting, perhaps. Thank you. So a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Coleman, second by Councillor Pierce. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest by any member of council, if now or later. Thank you. We'll then go to delegations, etc. And the first is a delegation from SCORE, South Central Ontario Regional Development, and I believe Kimberly is going to make the presentation to us rather than the people being the chair and Mayor Luke who are listed. Correct? Please come forward. Welcome, and please proceed when you're ready.
Well, thank you for having me here this evening. Pleased to be here in Brant, and this delegation presentation is just to update you on partner activities.
Yes.
And okay, can you guys hear me now? Sorry, it's the height requirement. So the first slide just runs through a little bit of history as to why the 5-county partnership came together as a means to ensure prosperity across the region. We had a shared geography, many shared economic base activities, and the council and mayors at the time were very visionary in thinking that shared resources and looking for partner support across the region would support the economic prosperity in the region. And that was the partnership was established formally in 2010, but I believe they were actually the Mayor's Roundtable before that in 2008, 2009. So some of the things that we've been doing this year, we've done some focus on downtown and business supports, which some of the efforts that we did were we did some webinars on best practices across the downtowns. Many of our downtown BIA and chambers of commerce have limited staff, and so and are often facing many of the same issues in their downtowns. So getting all of the downtown coordinators together and the chambers of commerce gave us an opportunity to share best practices, and one was the Win This Space, which was actually a program developed in Huron, and they partnered with their CFDCs, much as SCORE did with the Sand Plains Community Development Fund, to win space in downtown vacant buildings and sort of give entrepreneurs a bit of a safety net when starting a business in a downtown. So that was one of the things that we discussed. We had a series of downtown revitalization meetings that were hosted through programs with OMAFA, and we had 2 sessions that were focused on cultural downtown revitalization, and one was held in Ingersoll and one was here in Paris, and they were both very well attended. And I think one of the great things about the meetings themselves were that you got to see a draw from across the region, so not just in the 5-county partnership, but beyond. So I thought that was a really interesting mix of attendees, and it was a lot of good information there. And again, thank you to Paris and Brant County for hosting one of those sessions. One of the other things that we do continually is we send out information through our funding matrix. And the funding matrix is not just financial resources available, but staffing incentives, planning opportunities to partner. So this year we sent out 257, and they're from across the region. So they can be incentives that are here at Brant County or at other counties, or incentives that are federal or provincial. So that's a resource that you always have access to through us, and we send that out on a regular basis if you sign up. But certainly you can always call the office if you're looking for something in particular, or connect through Allison or your two SCORE board members, and we can get you that information as well. One of the other things that we did this year is we had 3 missions to China, and those were funded through a third-party entity. So those didn't come out of our operating budgets at all. And the last one was in November, and we were part of a larger provincial contingent that went over. And so we got to market the area, not only with the elected officials and the state-owned enterprises within China, but also with the business to business. So we had the opportunity to attend several trade shows that focused on light manufacturing, food processing, and agriculture. And so we'll be following up with those over the next few months. And but I just want to let you know that we are doing those types of marketing efforts as well. And so some of the things that we've done through our ag and food sector is, and I'll give you a little bit of an update on the Food Hub. It's transitioned over from SCORE daily administration to the Fresh Spoke platform. And that was our sort of intent and mandate from early on. And that's done very well. They just came back from a Fresh Expo in Chicago. So again, we're getting some international exposure for this region, and I believe the Fresh Spoke Food Hub won an award for innovation in agriculture in small rural areas. And so that was a participation-based event. So people submitted their names or their projects, and it was juried. And so to receive that kind of recognition from across North America, I thought was exceptional. The other group that we're a part of is part of the FLEDGE, which is Food Locally Embedded and Globally Engaged, and that is led through Allison Blay Palmer here actually in Brantford at Laurier University. And that again gives us that sort of national and North American exposure to put forward not only what we're capable of growing here in this region, but some of the innovative things that we're doing. So that's another one of the great things, that by having a regional partnership, we can bring that forward for all 5 counties. Also through SCORE, you're a member of Food and Beverage Ontario with access to all kinds of studies and industry information. And so I want to remind you that that is accessible through us, as well as the OAFT, which is the Ontario Agri-Food Technologies Group. And again, their focus is agriculture and food technologies, and specifically based on early commercialization ideas. So again, we partner with them on a regional basis so that each county has an access to those larger groups that may not be able to as one county. And we continue to work with the OFA across the region and provincially. One of the things that we've been focusing a lot of time and effort on specifically lately are transportation. Many of you may have remembered back in 2013 with the decline of some of the short line rail systems that had an effect on some of our agriculture and manufacturing companies in the area. We were able to get together and do some studies and find out the impact and work with the short line rails at that time, and that's an ongoing. Again, we're looking at highway connectivity, specifically north and south in our region, and multimodal opportunities. And certainly if we're able to divert some of the traffic congestion, be it rail or overland, out of the GTA and into sort of Brant, the north part of Oxford, and into northern Middlesex, that's good for us as a region, as well as alleviate some of the traffic issues in the GTHA. And most recently, we've sent a letter to the new Minister of Transportation requesting that the community transportation funding that many of the communities received over the last months be honored and held in place. Within our region, we had 5 communities receive that funding. And so we got together as coordinators, including representatives here from Brant County, to look at how we can connect beyond our own counties and intercommunity connectivity. And unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of the map, but if you'd like, I can send you that electronically afterwards through either Allison or one of your board members. But it really gives a strong picture of how we're starting to build that community-to-community transportation possibilities through the community transportation efforts. For instance, Ride Norfolk will be coming into, or hoping to come into Paris and into the city of Brantford with their funding. So it really provides that regional connectivity. And again, we're still working with MTO to sort of ensure that there's a regional voice at all planning and EA, especially as they consider the high-speed or high-performance rail going through the area, that we definitely have a voice at the table. And human capital, we work with the 2 workforce planning boards in our area. We've recently participated in a precarious employment study. We're doing some work with succession planning specialists in the region, specifically focusing on farms and small businesses. The Grand Erie catchment area is in a similar shape as the Elgin, Middlesex, Oxford, although not quite to the extent. But again, there seems to be certain key skilled trades that they're always looking for openings. So that's one of the things that we've been working, again, with the Workforce Planning Board, post-secondary institutions, and our school boards to ensure that we promote those opportunities to students and families and those seeking jobs. And we continue to work with Youth Job Connection across the region and provide specific labor market information. And advocacy and connecting, so we're coming up to the AMO conference, which will be in August. So we're putting together, we've put together delegation requests for various ministries, and some of them are listed here. And I encourage you, even though we have our delegation requests in, if there's something specific either now or throughout the year, please connect with us, again, either through board representation or through Allison, to let us know what we can be doing specifically for Brant County, what we can be doing that has regional impact, or if you would like to attend some of the delegations with us. If you're attending AMO, I typically send out the schedule, and we're always happy to see other members join us there as well. And that's it. Just wanted to thank you again for your continued support here in Brant, and give you just a partner update, and just ask that you keep connected as you have been, and to say thank you for your partnership at this time.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions of the delegation by members of council? Councillor Powell.
On your topic of influencing provincial and federal laws, I thought a few years ago we had a law that the American berries, raspberries, strawberries, could not come in when our farmers were at the beginning and at their peak of their crop. And unfortunately, our local farmers with the new minimum wage have to sell their product for at least $1 more than the California. And in one local store, you actually have a sign, "Good things grow in Ontario," and just above the sign are California strawberries. So if you could do anything to support our local farmers that way, that would be excellent.
Through the mayor. Yes, thank you. We continue to work with OMAFRA, especially on the Local Food Act, and now as we're entering sort of a new phase with our partners south of the border, and there are some things up in the air, that continues to be one of the things that you're absolutely correct that we need to stay on top of, because unfortunately we do have those that's not an isolated incident. And We've been very lucky as part of our Food Hub steering committee. We've had Dr. John Kelly as part of our steering committee, and Wendy Smith, who Wendy does purchasing for, I think it's 38 large hospitals and long-term care facilities in the region. And the more that we can get those sort of large procurement contracts in place, I think that opens up space for, stronger sales of our own local product, as you said. But yes, we do continue to work with OMAFRA on that.
Yep.
Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the presenter, Kim, thank you so much. Very good information. My question is, you've had 3 trips to China, and it sounds like they've been very successful. At this point, is there any or much interest in China purchasing land in the region? I'm not going to say county, but the region.
So there's been some interest. The whole idea of this particular set of missions was to build a bridge beyond just the normal sort of missions where elected officials meet elected officials, and then sometimes it's many years until you're able to go back again due to schedules. They very highly value your participation as an elected official in China, and we're trying to connect those. Sorry, I'm not being very articulate this evening. We're trying to make those connections business to business as well. We have not made it to the stage where there has been specific interest. There has been some options that have been opened up for land purchase, but there has not been a complete follow through at this point. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Kim. 2 quick questions, Kim. First one, is the whole SCORE region Conservative MPPs now?
We are.
Okay, so hopefully we've got a little more influence now that they're the governing party. Second question, how would you rate the health of the members of SCORE, like economically speaking? I know how we're doing, and we talked a little bit about Tilsonburg and some of the issues I read about in the paper, but are things growing, or are things healthy, unhealthy? How would you describe them economically?
I think that we are in a very good place, and that we're able to take advantage of some good opportunities that will be, that may be coming forward. I think particularly here in Brant, you guys, I know are undergoing a strategic planning exercise. And so that's, always bodes well for being prepared for future opportunities. If I had to say one thing that we are, maybe that needs some attention, and I know that all 5 counties are giving it their full attention, is those hard to fill positions and sort of that youth attraction. But overall, I would say that yes, we are in relatively good economic health.
Councillor Gatward?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kim, I was pleased to hear you offer our participation in the ministers and meeting at the AMO conference. That's coming up fairly soon, and you had several ministers listed that you wish to meet with. Will you supply a schedule to each council as to when those meetings are?
Absolutely. So sometimes some of the schedules are come in quite late. So often if the conference delegations start on Sunday, I'm still sort of confirming dates and times as late as Friday evening or Saturday. But I always send the latest updated schedule, and I typically send it to our resource group, who is from Brant County, is Allison. So I'll send it to Allison, as well as all county council members as well.
Thank you, because this year with a whole new slate of ministers, it will be quite important to get our message across. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other member of council? In this connection, I would say that I expect we're all enthused about the announcement of Conestoga College, which we have been talking about in Economic Development Committee for a number of months, has purchased a building in our area and is going to purchase 3 more, and their plans for educating youth is exceptional. It's a real hurrah day, this item. So, thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you for your presentation. And next is Cindy Blair, Steel Wheel Brewery, with a request.
Push down.
Welcome, please proceed when you're ready.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Eddy and members of Brant County Council. I'm here tonight to give you an update on Steel Wheel Brewery. I've been in front of you a few times now, as well as make a request to designate our grand opening as municipally significant. As hop growers, we had a vision of an on-farm brewery where our hops would be used in the beer we brew and served on site. Thanks to the support of Brant County Council, the County of Brant employees, and the Brant County Fire Department, our brewery opened on June the 1st of this year, 2018. So this is a view of our tasting room as you walk into the brewery. So it includes area for people to sit and enjoy a glass or a sample of the beer that we brew. Business is booming. So we've been very well received since we opened on June the 1st. We have had tons of busy weekends. We're open Fridays and Saturdays noon to 9 and Sundays noon to 5. And we'd like to celebrate our opening with a grand opening on August 11th. As part of that grand opening, we would like to extend our serving area to a grassy, shady area behind the brewery. That was part of your attachment. And we would like to extend our serving hours by 2 hours and stop serving at 11 o'clock at night. So currently the AGCO governs us to stop serving at 9 o'clock at night. And we'd like to, for the grand opening, just go till 11. In order to do this, we needed to apply to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission and get something called a special occasion permit. So that in order to extend our hours and extend our location, the AGCO requires an SOP, and that SOP has 3 event types, and I'll walk you through those event types. A private event is for invited guests only. It's not publicly advertised, and there's no profit from the sale of alcohol. Is one of the options we had, which isn't the one we prefer. Our industry promotional events, so we can only serve samples of the beer and no profit can be made from the sale of alcohol, which are fairly restrictive events when it comes to celebrating a grand opening of a brewery. The one that we feel fits us best and that we have applied for is that it would be a public event. So we'd be open to the public, we would advertise the grand opening, we would gain profit from the sale of alcohol. However, it does require a municipal designation, and that's where you come in. So Steel Wheel Brewery has applied to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario as a public event. The AGCO requires public events to be designated municipally significant, and their definition of municipally significant is an event of municipal significance, which requires a municipal resolution or a letter from a delegated municipal official designating the event as municipally significant. So I'm here tonight to ask for that designation from Brant County Council. Is our grand opening municipally significant? Well, we are Brant County's first craft brewery. We are actually Brant County's only craft brewery. We are one of only a few, and I would say probably a handful of craft breweries in Ontario that are on-farm breweries. So the hops that we grow go into the beer that we make. We have become a popular tourist spot. We have families who come in and enjoy the beer as well as sometimes a meal with their beer because they bring food into our brewery. We are part now of tours. We are part of the True Brew Path, bringing in tourists from Hamilton and area as part of the Ale Trail. As well, we've been contacted by different tour groups to be part of that. We also have tourists, so we've been asking people what brings you to the brewery, and family members have brought people from as far as Australia to come and visit our craft brewery. We are also part of a very niche market because craft beer enthusiasts travel far and wide to go to craft breweries, and they have come specifically to Brant County to visit our brewery, so the word is getting out. On August the 11th, we hope to have some music, some food for people to enjoy. We really support agricultural history, and we will have an operating steam engine, so we own an operating and licensed steam tractor, so we will have that there, as well as some other steel-wheeled tractors. A Harp Par maybe may come out of the barn, as well as a Sawyer Massey and some other farm equipment. We will give tours of the hop yards because people generally don't know what hops are, and we really want to connect people to the land. And our hope is to be open from noon to 9, and as well we'll be serving, there's some bias in this last point, fantastic steel wheel beer. So certainly we feel that it's great beer. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about this tonight. We hope that you can see the municipal significance in our opening and grant that request for a resolution. And we also hope to see you on August the 11th. That's it.
Thank you
Any
for
questions?
your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Adams.
Questions by members of council? Anyone have a question about the matter? It is a request to you to make a decision. So do you have a?
Do you want me to make the motion now?
No, thank you. Councillor Simon?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment, if I may.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, welcome to the County of Brant, and congratulations on being the first brewery in Brant County that's
Thank
on a
you.
farm. It's wonderful.
Yes, thank you very much.
So congratulations, and I hope you do really well in the future, and I'm sure County of Brant will support you.
Mainly for questions rather than anything else.
Oh, I did ask if I could make a comment, that was all.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you.
We will deal with the matter. Third, the next one is Mary Ann Love, Mount Consulting, regarding County of Brant 2018 Council Compensation Review. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be with you again. Cindy, did you want to do any introductions, or just want me to go with the presentation? We okay? All right, fine. So I have a bit of a presentation. I understand it's in council, your council agenda, together with a staff report. So I'm going to take you through the presentation briefly, and I'm pleased to answer questions afterwards, and I expect that there will probably be some questions regarding staff report as well. In terms of the background, compensation for the elected officials here at the County of Brant was reviewed in 2012, and it was established by a corresponding bylaw. In terms of understanding what the base pay for the County of Brant elected officials is as current, it's outlined on this slide. So we have a mayor that receives the mayor receives a base pay amount of $69,582 annually, and a councillor receives the amount of $23,598 annually. The incumbents in these positions have a 1/3 tax-free exemption. There are $75 per diem rates that are paid for serving on external boards, committees, agencies, or corporations, and any per diems received from that body are paid to the county. Health and dental benefits are provided with 50% of the premiums paid by the elected official. There's kilometerage expense that's provided. It's equivalent to the staff rate, which is 52 cents a kilometer, and the mayor receives a $3,000 annual car allowance. There is an annual conference budget, $4,000 for mayor and $2,000 for councillor. The representatives on municipal organization boards will receive $1,800 annually. And in terms of communication devices, laptops are provided to all elected officials and a cell phone to the mayor. I understand the base pay is adjusted annually at the same percentage rate that is provided to the management non-union staff salaries, and there is no regular schedule review of the external pay market, but we're doing it this year, which is not uncommon. Many councillors are doing it this year with the view of establishing base pay for an incoming council in 2019. Again, we know that in 2019, the elected official positions will no longer have the one-third tax-free income benefit. That is being removed through the 2017 federal budget, and the effective date for that is January 1st, 2019. The primary objective of this review is to review the elements of the compensation package, which I did, with particular focus on base pay and also the one-third tax-free allowance, or sorry, income benefit. And that's, that's basically the outlined on this slide. So I'll take you right basically to the overarching results. Generally, once I was able to take a look at the base pay remuneration elements and compare those to other municipalities, I find that the base pay remuneration for the elected officials at the County of Brant is low compared to those organizations. The other elements of compensation are generally competitive. There's lots of variety. Every council sort of has its own way of recognizing and compensating for other various elements. But as I said, we're basically focusing on base pay here. I think the other elements are generally competitive, but with the exception of health benefits, and that is, I'll reference that further on in the presentation, and it's also referenced in the staff report. The single-tier comparator group, in my view, is representative based on select criteria, and I think the 50th percentile target, that's just sort of basically the midpoint on the market matches, is reasonable based on our organization here. In terms of the methodology, I conducted a market survey. I sourced comparator data from 12 organizations. Actually, staff were instrumental in pulling that in. It was moved over to me, and I did the comparisons on the various elements of compensation. The comparator group was selected having regard to a number of criteria. You can see them listed here. So geographic placement, similar types of services, size, various economic indicators. But I think most importantly, this group is aligning with the comparators that were used for the management non-union compensation review that I had the pleasure to do for this organization probably about 4 years ago, I think. The comparator group is shown in the report, and I'll bring you to that slide in a few minutes. I also sourced the AMCTO publication. Some of you may be familiar with that. This year, AMCTO put out a publication in March of this year titled Municipal Council Compensation in Ontario, which had some interesting data. It also had some interesting observations in it. As I said, staff collected the data, and I reviewed it and drew certain observations and conclusions. The comparator-based pay is referenced on Appendix B, and I'll flip to that in a minute. Basically, what I was doing is taking a look at each municipal organization that we selected and taking a look at the various elements of compensation that are provided to the elected officials in those organizations. And when I did so, I was able to take a look predominantly at that base pay, and the overarching result is that the mayor is 6.9%. The mayor at the county of Brant is paid 6.9% below the market median, or the 50th percentile of the organizations that we compared to. The annual base pay ranges in those organizations, and you can see that on Appendix B, they range from $38,494 to $89,366 annually. So quite a wide range. And then we would look at the midpoint of that, sort of the midpoint, not the highest, not the lowest, but the midpoint of that range, we can see that we are behind. When we do the same for the counselor positions, we see that the ranges for the comparator group, they range from $11,698 annually to $39,879 annually. Again, quite a range. And when we compare the base pay for counselors amongst that group, and looking to the midpoint of that group, the 50th percentile, we see that we're 17% below that group. In my view, I think the median target, or the pay target of the comparator group, is reasonable, having regard to the County of Brant's relative placement within that group, and you can see that on the appendices. Now let's go. I'll just take you through some of the other elements of compensation in terms of how the comparators reported. 11 of the 12 comparator organizations reported on the one-third tax-free exemption, and all currently provide that exemption. 3 municipalities report that the base salaries of their elected officials will be increased to offset the loss on net income, so they've made that decision at this point. 1 municipality reports that there will be no offset, and 5 municipalities state that a report is pending. There are many reports pending in the province over the course of this month and next, is my understanding. And 2 municipalities are reporting there's no change being contemplated at this time, and I would then surmise that it would be then left to the next term of council to make that determination. And of course, if there is no action, then the 1/3 tax-free exemption just takes effect. In any event. A practice in the sector supports an increase to offset the pending tax treatment. It's been my experience. And also in conversations with AMO as well. I understand that that seems to be a practice that's been evolving. And it may be evolving a bit late, given the fact that we're on the cusp of elections, but that seems to be the experience. 5 of 12 comparator organizations also reported on the method of adjusting council remuneration, and all 5 of those comparators report that they adjust the compensation annually by the amount of increase that's provided, thank you, to the employee salary grid by COLA or year-over-year change in the CPI. So there's a regular adjustment. All 5 comparators consider market data from neighboring municipalities, so they do custom surveys, just as we've done here. And one of the 5 comparators reported quite a unique way of adjusting pay, and they adjust the pay to a percentage of the director level top rate of pay in the employee group. The warden 60%, the deputy warden 35%, and councillor 30%. And in my experience, that's new. I haven't seen that before. The regimen seems to be more along the lines of what we're doing here. Now, 6 comparators report that there are no per diems provided, and 2 comparators report an allowance of $70 if meals are not provided at a meeting, so that's per diems per meeting. 11 of the 12 comparators did report on travel, so they report on a kilometrage reimbursement. The kilometrage expense ranged from 45 to 51 cents a kilometer. 3 of the comparators report payment of an annual car allowance plus kilometrage for travel outside of the municipality, ranging from $5,000 to $7,200 for mayor and about $1,000 to $3,600 for councillors, with kilometrage paid for travel outside municipality. 1 comparator provides a vehicle for the mayor. So wide-ranging experience with regards to travel in terms of the organizations that we surveyed. 7 of the 12 comparators provide a laptop, so here we're talking about communications. So the norm is to provide the laptop, and 1 comparator provides shared use of desktop on site, and there are 5 comparators provide a cell phone for all elected officials and members, and 3 comparators provide a cell phone for the mayor warden. 10 of the 12 comparators provide access to group benefit plan coverage or payment in lieu of benefits, and 5 of those 10 provide the offering with payment of premium by the elected official. 3 comparators pay the premiums, and 1 comparator provides payment of premium over $2,000 in lieu of benefits, and 1 comparator provides upwards of $3,000 in lieu of benefits. So again, different treatment. 4 of the comparators report that their elected officials participate in the OMERS pension plan. It's common practice in the sector to review council remuneration once during the term of council, and typically the revised base pay rates are implemented during the next term of council. And council-based pay is typically determined by a customized market survey, as we're undertaking here, of a comparator group, and this practice is also common practice to increase the annual base pay for elected official positions annually by an amount that's used to adjust the management non-union salary grid. And that practice has evolved over the last number of years. This allows for a year-over-year increase, which is aligning with cost of living increases in the municipality, and it's also supported by survey results. And the AMCT report did reference the issue of full-time and part-time, and some councils are interested in just probing that a bit. And the information that came through the report was that fewer than 5% of municipalities in the province that have a population below 50,000 have a full-time mayor. In conclusion, the survey results show that the annual base pay for the mayor and councillor positions are both low to the defined pay market at all percentile levels. So certainly if it's low at the 50th percentile, it's going to be low at the higher percentile targets. It would appear that council is generally competitive with the other elements of remuneration other than the group health benefits. And as I stated earlier, the market comparator group and the 50th percentile target for base pay, in my view, are both reasonable and still conservative. So in terms of recommendations, it's recommended that council consider the following changes to compensation effective January 1 of next year. That the base pay for the elected officials be increased based on that 50th percentile target, and adjusted by a percentage adjustment applied to the management non-union group for January 1st, 2019. These numbers that you see here are numbers, they're 2018 numbers. So in order for us to be in lockstep with the next year, we'd need to follow the adjustment protocol that we've had in the past. The 2018 market adjusted rates are reflected here, and they're $74,362 and $27,604. It's also recommended that the county continue its practice of adjusting base pay for elected official positions. It has become the norm in the province. And while as I was mentioning to your CIO, I have done a number of these reviews this year, and each one of these seems to be a common practice in terms of these annual adjustments. And it does keep council positions a little bit more in lockstep with their comparators. And even having said that, we see we have still fallen a bit behind. So if we hadn't been doing that on a periodic basis, I think the gaps would be bigger. So it's best to continue to adjust on an annual basis once the baseline is set, or reset, if you will. Also recommending that the County of Brant continue the practice of conducting a market review as we have this year. And as I said, the practice that has evolved is to try and get this work done during that last year of council, so it's ready for the next term of council coming in. Also recommend that the base pay for the mayor and council be increased to offset the removal of the 1/3 tax-free treatment, and it's subject to any change in the legislation, which does not seem to be forthright. It doesn't seem to be any change at this point in time. So, and it won't be long until our January 1st date is upon us. Also recommending that council gives consideration to 100% of the premiums be paid for benefits for elected officials, whether that's single or family. And I know Cindy's report has referenced the costings on that, and that's something for council to think about. And as I mentioned, the implementation costs, the reference to benefits, and the 1/3 tax-free calculations are all set out in her report. Now, in terms of the appendices that I referenced earlier, this appendix that's also in your package just references the municipalities in terms of getting a sense of what our comparators are looking like. We've got the tier referenced, we've got the percentage, the 2016 expenditures, some of this and the population, a median total income. Of course, in 2015, so some of this information was reported or pulled from the 2016 FIRs, and some has been reported from the 2016 census data. But it gives you a sense of relativity amongst the group, and we're showing a County of Brant in the first row across. Okay. The comparator base pay that was used to calculate the 50th percentile values are shown here. So we see the County of Brant's base pay for the mayor and councillor. You see that there. And you also see the base pay for the respective positions for each one of those municipalities. It's also shown. And then in Appendix B, what we've done here is taken the matches. So of course we have 12 municipalities, and that's why you see 12 observations. That's 12 matches for the mayor. And we had a deputy mayor showing up in 3. While we don't have one here, the statistic is shown. All right. And of course you can see the 12 observations or 12 matches for the councillor. So the first column that says market median annual is the column that's of relevance. And you can see the market median rate, for example, with mayor is $74,362 $27,662, and for counselor, it's $27,604. And the percentage differential column that shows immediately adjacent to that is just saying that we would have to increase each one of our elected officials by those respective amounts to meet that target. So we're 6.9% below with mayor and 17% below with councillor. Okay? And that's what the numbers show us. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and happy to answer any questions, or perhaps there's questions of staff.
Questions by members of council? Any questions? Councilor Call?
In support of your recommendations, there are some intangibles that are hard to quantify. For example, Brant County is experiencing a lot of growth, which is good. Now that means we have more things in residential, industrial, infrastructure, etc. I think we've had more OMB hearings in the last year, and the OMB hearings are longer, and you try to get to the ones you're able to. We're also finding there are more meetings because of our applications we receive for residential, where it might have been 1 or 2 meetings, now it's 3, 4, or 5. We're also having citizens who are presenting us with a lot of material on some technical problems. For example, we had a citizens group talk to us about the road regarding our well, Watts Pine Road, and they came to us numerous times, and a lot of it was very technical. You had to do your reading or open up your dictionary to find what's going on. We've also had more public meetings because more things going on, and we try to be open and transparent, so it means you have 2 or 3 public meetings to meet to try to get across what's happening. Now, I know these are difficult to say they're worth X amount, but it is a growing situation. Now, the increase to management cost of living is good for councilors as well. Now, with the growth, the county's been able to hire more staff, but it doesn't change the council. We do the same work plus more because of the growth factor. And I said the growth is excellent, but it does take more work, more study to keep up the pace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Miller?
Okay, I don't know if the presenter was going to respond to that, or...
Well,
Pardon?
I think it was,
I didn't hear the question.
Statement.
Please speak into the mic.
Well, I didn't know if the presenter was going to respond to that or
Well,
not.
I can, but I'm not sure that it will be greatly helpful. I think I hear the councillor's comments, and I'm certainly that you experience those challenges, the benefits and the challenges of growth on a daily basis. And I guess what I would, I guess my response to that is, there seems to be a level of busyness on this council that has increased over the years, if I can capture the councillor's sentiment. And that would then underscore why council would probably want to be taking a look at the remuneration for councillors to at least make sure that it's representative of the 50th percentile of the targeted group. Now, there may well be some municipalities in that group that also have experienced growth. Let's hope so. So that we are comparing ourselves to a representative pool. But it is a bit of concern if there's a lag in compensation and the level of effort has increased.
Councilor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Love. 2 questions, okay? And the first one, I'm glad we got that chart up there.
Sure.
I know you threw a lot of stats at it, but the one stat I was actually looking for was the cost per ratepayer for municipal government, because some of those are lower tier, upper tier, and we're obviously a single tier. So kind of in the context of what Councillor Powell was referring to, we do got to kind of make sure we know everything, as far as municipal government goes, or we should try it to make an effort. So, did you break that down at all as far as?
No, I haven't. I mean, I think you'd probably look at the overall costs of, of operating council and then putting that or spreading that across the population, so I haven't run that statistic.
I think it'd be a good statistic because, it would speak to, as well, to the number of counselors. Like if I look at, just as an example, if I look at Brantford, they're 28,000, but they also have the same number of counselors that we do, and they have, a little bit larger population. Okay, so I'll leave that. Second question is, as far as, most of the stuff you talked about was base pay, and then you talked about some of the other remuneration. One of those was per diem. What are your thoughts of, we don't do anything as far as base pay goes, leave it, and then incentivize us to do maybe a little more work, whether we get a per diem $10, $20 per meeting, or one thing we do is look at our attendance, for example, and you could say, here's $5,000 and we'll prorate it based on your attendance, or something to that effect. Are other municipalities doing anything like that, or what are your thoughts on that kind of compensation?
Well, in terms of the work that I've done, Councillor, most recently this year, I see most of the compensation is in base pay. And then there's some, what I call ancillary compensation would go to meetings, but not a high level of compensation. It's mostly in the base pay. And then, of course, then there's the level of effort, and is then the level of effort equally distributed amongst all members of council. And sometimes that's hard to measure, and it's hard to give effect to. Oftentimes we'll rest with the mayor to make sure the committee compositions are fair and equitable and everybody's sort of pulling their weight. But that tends to be what happens in municipal councils, is more along the lines of what I've just described, as opposed to putting a lot of money on payment for meetings. It tends to be mostly in the base pay. Now, payment for meetings of other boards, common, right? But I think your reference is really more the work of council. Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Love. The first slide that you showed us, it says in the third bullet point that the $75 per diem rates paid for external boards, committees, agencies received from that body are paid to the county.
Was that a mistake?
I believe that, I don't receive any, but
Okay.
I believe that those per diems are paid to the councillors, and they are not
And
returned
not
to the
returned, so that might have been
county.
an error on my part.
You could confirm that with the clerk.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor, would you ask the councillor to speak into the microphone, please?
Would you turn the mic on, please? It was on, thank you. Yes, speak directly into it rather than to the person. If you speak to the mic, then we all hear it.
She did, we heard.
Thank you.
If that's a question to me, yes. And it may have been an error on my behalf. It may have been my misinterpretation of the information that was provided. So I would look for clarification from staff myself. If that helps the councillor.
Yes, when I read that, I didn't think it was correct, and it needed to be fixed. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could the staff comment on that? So that we're all informed? Yes?
Pardon? What is the question?
Clerk, I believe.
Clerk?
I am actually not sure. I'm not sure if there are per diems being paid or who they're being paid to, because they're not coming through my office anymore.
So, Cindy?
I'm really not able to clarify the answer to that either. The information that we provided to Mary Ann was from the bylaw, so we'll need to double check that.
Okay, and we can do that.
Who are we paying per diem?
I don't know if they're paying anyone. I don't know.
Thank you. Councillor Gatward?
If I may follow up, I believe it's the councillors that sit on the Brant County Health Unit, the conservation authorities, those type of agencies, and I'm sure that the councillors present that sit on those boards could confirm, yes, whether they receive that or whether they pay it back to the municipality.
We receive it. We receive it.
Any comments?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think anything comes through me, so I don't know. No, it goes directly to the council.
And
Anyone else? Councillor Simons?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may get clarification from you, did you say that the you would suggest that the recommendation be approved from this council and then sent on to the new council? Be approved through this council, in other words. Am I saying that correctly? Approve this recommendation that you're suggesting at this council instead of forwarding the recommendation on to the new council for approval?
Yeah, my recommendation is that this council make the decision, and then they give that over to the next council. It's in effect January 1st, 2019.
Okay.
And what that does is it allows the incoming council to receive that remuneration as approved by the previous council. And that tends to be a practice that has evolved over at least this term
Okay.
of council in the province. There are many councils that are doing that. And there are some that will receive the report and will leave it to the next council to make that decision. So it's really up to council
Yeah.
to determine how they want to proceed, this council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If there are no other questions, thank you for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
Nothing additional? Thank you. Members of council, we have 3 delegations. The one, of course, was the SCORE presentation. Is there a motion to receive that or whatever? Councillor Pierce moves. Councillor someone seconds. Councillor Powell seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 2 was the Steel Wheel Brewery requests for grand opening event being designated. Councillor Miller?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that the Steel Wheel Brewery event be declared a municipally significant event for the purposes of a special occasion.
And I think you should further add that the clerk be requested to send a letter to the Ontario License and Gaming Commission in support of the request.
Second by Councillor Wheat.
Yeah, well, that's to be added to the motion, and then I will second
Is
it.
that correct? That's correct. Yes. Correct. Thank you. Discussion of the motion, anyone wish to comment? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And thirdly, we have Marianne Love's presentation on compensation. How do you wish to do with that? I believe your hand was up first, Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will refer that to 9B, that's coming up later in our agenda.
Pardon? I'll second that. Second that motion, and the motion is, would you read it?
That the presentation regarding the County of Brant 2018 Council Compensation Review be referred for consideration with report COU 1825.
Discussion, anyone wish to comment on the motion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes disposition of the delegations. We're now on adoption of minutes from previous meetings of council.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Goward, that the County Brant Council minutes of June 26th and July 9th, 2018 be approved.
Thank you. Anyone wish to comment? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, which takes us to business arising from the minutes. And nothing is listed, so over the page, consent items to be approved, none. Consent items to be received, 1 to 9. Consent items to be received from the circulation folder, 1 to 11. Any member of council wish any item withdrawn for discussion separately? No one?
It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coleman, that the following consent items be received as information. Items 1 through 20.
Comment? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Committee reports, and we'll start with Planning Advisory Committee.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Chambers. The Planning Advisory Committee report of July 3rd be approved, noting there are 5 items.
Members of council, any questions? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Community Services Committee report.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chambers, that the Community Service Report of July 9th, 2018 be approved, noting that there are 6 recommendations.
Questions of the chair? No questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Corporate Development Committee report.
It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the Corporate Development Committee report of July 9th be approved, and there's 4 items for consideration.
Questions of the presenter? Any questions by members of council? Councillor Simons, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one question, and after it is approved, I would just like to know when staff will be arranging the meeting with the CIP group regarding the wall at the Two Rivers, or if it has already been put together. I don't know. Thank you.
Anyone else? No one? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now we're to Public Works Committee. Councillor Coleman.
Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, second by Councillor Miller, the Public Works Committee report from July 10th, 2018 be approved, noting lesson number 13 recommendation.
Noting 15, which?
13.
13.
13.
Thank you. Members of council, anyone? No one? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Brant County Power Investment Fund Advisory Committee report.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the Brant County Power Investment Fund Advisory Committee report of July 16, 2018 be approved.
Questions of the chair. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, it states in there, it says, discussion was held regarding the impact of higher interest rates on bond and stock performance and the long-term trends in that regard. In a response to the question, Ms. Snyder noted that the funds can be withdrawn at any time from the program, but it doesn't indicate if there's any penalty for withdrawing the funds and what that penalty would be. I'm interested to know.
I'm going to pass that question on to our CEO, if I may.
Your Worship, through you, and through you to Councillor Pierce. So there is no penalties. We have to basically absorb any losses that we would incur between the starting investment and the ending. But there's no penalties to exit from the program. So
Good to know. If I could follow up with that. It was also noted that another option, further on down in the report, that another option may be to withdraw a portion of the funds for projects scheduled for debt financing. I think this is a great idea, and I'd like to be interested in further conversations with that. So I think that's definitely an option, is a good option, and thank you for bringing that forward on the committee. I think that's maybe a good use of that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes the list of reports, so we'll go to number 9 staff reports, and the first is the proposed council appointment by the clerk.
I don't know if there's a request to move this to later in the meeting, or if we want to deal with this at this point. Okay, someone has.
Councilor Chambers, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have the resolution. Just to note that at the special council meeting, a process was approved.
Yes,
the
sir.
process has been dutifully carried out, and the conclusion of that process results in the following recommendation, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman, that Mr. Steve Schmidt be appointed to fill Council Ward 1 vacancy for the remainder of the current term of council ending November 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Members of council, comment, questions? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Which will take us to B, financial considerations of council remuneration review. C. Stevenson. Your report. I thought we'd handle this.
Okay, thank you. So the report outlines the financial considerations or implications of the recommendations that Mary Ann Love provided an overview on earlier this evening. So it specifically outlines the 1/3 tax exemption. I think it's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what the cost would be to increase elected officials' salary so that there is the same net pay overall after that tax change, January 1st, 2019. It also outlines considerations as far as base pay and increasing elected officials' base pay to the market median, as recommended by Mary Ann Love. And finally, there's an overview provided on providing 100% of family or single benefit coverage at 100% premiums paid by the municipality.
Members of council? Councilor Wheat, sorry.
I'll move recommendation A.
Approve. And that is approve recommended amendments to council remuneration as described by the compensation consultant, M. Love, effective January 1, 2019, and update the council remuneration bylaw accordingly.
That's correct.
Thank you. Members of council, Councillor Simons.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
What does she do?
Seconds.
Seconds, thank you. Members of council, Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on the table on page 146 of our package, I believe that would represent option 2, which is the fully taxable grossed up figures for the mayor and council. And that would bring us up to the 50th percentile and also allow something for the fact that now we've lost our municipal officers' allowance. So I do support that. And if I might add, in light of Councillor Powell's earlier comments, which are so true, there is more and more meetings and more everything, and council has to deal with that and the growth, and I think that not too many residents will be upset with us setting our bar at the 50% range. We're not going to the top. Our neighbors to the east pay themselves much more than we do. And I think this is very fair to everyone.
What's the recommendation are we using? Members council, other members? Councillor Miller?
Just, I will vote against A, simply because I think this is something that should also be approved by the new council. So if it's defeated, I'll support B.
Pardon? Go ahead. You finished?
I'm done. I'm just saying, I think I support it in principle, but I would like to see it deferred for final approval to the newly elected council. So if it's defeated, I will support B.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers?
Could I just get some clarification, Mr. Mayor, on what the motion is? If I understand the motion, it is move the recommendation of the consultant's report, which is, it is recommended that council consider the following modifications, compensation effective January 1st, 2019. Is that what I'm understanding? Because if that is what is before us, then what that does is we recommend that council consider the following modifications, and I'm reading that as we are recommending this proposal to the next council who will make the decision on whether to implement it or not.
No. My understanding.
And that's my understanding of what the recommendation is, and that is essentially what Councillor Miller has indicated that he is supportive of. So my dilemma is, Councillor Miller is saying he doesn't support it because of this, that, or the other thing, and the other thing is essentially what he supports. So I really want to make sure that we know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that this council recommends the remuneration package to the next council. And the next council, on our recommendation, may choose to implement it or not implement it.
Freed.
The decision would be vested with the next council.
Thank you.
Now, I'm hearing yeses and nos, so that's why I want it clarified.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Love was specifically asked by a member of the council, what is the standard practice? And she stated that outgoing councils make the decision for the incoming councils. And that's what I believe, that's what the intent was, unless I misunderstood. But when I read this report, the gist of the whole thing is that we, as outgoing councils with experience and know what's involved in this job, set the new pay for January 1, 2019, and that's the way it's done throughout the marketplace.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, sir. I believe Councillor Chambers asked a question, and I think staff should answer the question before the councillor responds in there, so we can get some clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, if I interject, that was my question. I want clarification. I don't want to argue whether it's good or bad, or I just want to know what the resolution is, and the councillor is launched into a defense of a resolution that is unclear. So can we clear the resolution, and then we can debate it?
Good point.
Okay, I can answer that question. So under the council action required portion of the report, option A, the intent of that is that this council would make the decision and it would be implemented on January 1st, 2019.
Is that the resolution that is before us, is my question?
Yes. I moved it, and that is my motion.
Option A, yes.
And the murkiness was that you moved the recommendation of the consultant's report, not the recommendation of the staff report. So I'm hearing that the resolution is recommending the staff report, option A.
Yes.
Is that the resolution?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this one here.
My motion, if I might speak to it,
Please.
is to take the incoming council out of the decision.
Yes.
We're making the decision. It will be implemented 1 month into the new term of council. They don't make the decision. This term of council is making the decision.
Agreed.
That's my motion, Mr. Chambers.
Yes.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I'm on board here with Councillor Weed in the sense of discussions we had as it was, we didn't feel it was appropriate for a council to give itself a raise. So in essence, we're making this so for the incoming council, and we're not going to put the burden on them to, in essence, give themselves a raise.
Exactly.
So it's my understanding of this as well that we would be approving this recommendation to take effect January 1st.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Gatward.
That's what I understood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and if it helps Councillor Chambers at all, right now, we're dealing with 9B, which is the staff report, and option A is listed in, option A that Councillor Wheat moved is listed in 9B, the staff report.
What?
Are you clear, Mr. Mayor?
Back to you. No,
No?
I'm not.
I think that if I heard Councillor Wheat, he was, his resolution was to move option A
That's correct. Yes.
of the staff report.
That's correct.
So who disagrees with that?
Call the question, you'll find out.
Go ahead, Councillor
Well,
Chambers.
in effect, the new council can rescind anything they want or do anything they want because it's a new term of council. If they don't agree with it, they can change it to whatever they want.
Yes.
So in essence, this is just a recommendation of this council to the next council, and it's not binding. What binds it is whether the new council accepts it or wants to change it.
Thank you. 50K. Yes. So we have a motion. Is everyone clear on the motion that's before us that we're going to vote on? I'll put the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that completes item 9. We are now to item 10, information reports. Penman's Dam Hydroelectric Project. Now, can I ask a question? Is the dam still there? Or has it gone downriver yet? Good to hear. Councillor Miller.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Chambers, that staff report CLU 1823 Penman's Dam Hydroelectric Project be received as information.
Make this application. Councillor Pierce, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, it states in the report that it says, further, the county can submit a claim to the province for the costs incurred to date associated with this canceled project, and staff will be submitting paperwork to the province to attempt to recover the costs associated with this condition assessment. So is it an attempt to, or are we certain that we can recoup our costs thus far?
please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess we won't know until we've submitted it and received confirmation back. The FIT contract has language in it that if it's canceled before built, that the applicant, in this case the county, can claim certain expenses related to feasibility studies and other front-end work. And so the contract has been canceled before it's been started, and we're going to rely on that language. There are forms now being put forward by the IESO, and Ms. Hayward over at BME is completing those forms now. But again, my phrase attempt is that we can submit it and be optimistic that they will approve and refund those costs. So.
Perfect. If I could, as a follow-up to that, Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Pierce.
I think we've had good discussion around this table about this project, and
Yes.
I think we're all in favor of this project. It is a fantastic project, so if I could just kind of revert myself back to 8E, when it states, you know, it talked in there about withdraw a portion of the funds to, you know, to support other projects. And I think this would be an ideal candidate for such an option. And I just want to just get that on the table as, you know, looking at AD with the potential of doing such a thing. I think this would be a perfect candidate to do that because, as I say, I am 100% in favor of this, and I think it would be a good show to do that. So, thank you.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Michael, the author of the report. Pardon the pun, but is this project, do you think, dead in the water? Or, I worked hard on that all day, by the way.
Well, it's refused by the ministry.
No, the reason I'm asking.
We have a new government in Ontario.
The reason I'm asking,
change.
Mr. Mayor, is because I know we weren't sure at one time, obviously, if we would get the FIT or not, and there might have been an option to do maybe net metering. And I'm wondering, I don't know if anybody's crunched the numbers on that, would that still be a viable option?
So what is the question you're asking?
Okay, could the project still go ahead? Would it still be financially viable from a business case if, say, we looked at a net metering option? So we actually use the electricity directly instead of paying?
Well, that would have to be a different budget and probably a different council dealing with it. So there's no way of knowing that at this time.
In your worship, I can provide maybe two thoughts on that. And the first one is the Canadian Water Power Association is fairly active right now in pushing back in the province to reconsider the handful, and it was a small number of water power projects that just got canceled through the FIT program, because water power projects are good. You know, they're reliable and they capitalize on existing infrastructure, which the wind and solar projects don't. So that's the first thing. So this project may not be dead in the water, as was suggested. The second thing is, just because the FIT project the FIT contract has been canceled doesn't mean the project doesn't have some life in it. And so, as you said, the BME staff will start modeling different options. We have a condition assessment now we're reviewing. It's going to help us tighten up the math on what replacement of that dam is going to look like, as well as what turbine options could be put in place at that dam. So likely another business case will come forward in the future for this council or the next council to consider about that dam. And then the final thought is likely an environmental assessment is going to have to occur around that dam about the future of that dam, regardless of whether we put a turbine in place. So the condition assessment that the report speaks to is going to give us a lot of go-forward path for this project, and whether it goes forward as a reconditioning of the dam or reconditioning and the placement of turbine, either for power for us to use or sold on the spot market, et cetera. Those will all come forward in the future. So I think there is quite a bit of life left in this project, and reports will come forward soon.
I appreciate that, because from my perspective, that's encouraging, because just because one entity said no, doesn't mean it couldn't go forward in another form. So I'll leave that.
Councillor Powell had his hand up first. Councillor Powell.
Just to follow up what our CAO was saying, when the government brought this forward, it was like a blanket statement. Anything with green energy. Now, I can understand why they say that, because the wind solar was costing the taxpayer quite a bit of money to make up the difference in what they were guaranteeing for 20 years. Now, this one, as you said, we're in a completely different category. We're producing something which is clean, meets all the environmental assessments. It'll create power and take advantage of a natural asset, which is the river. So I wonder if there's any way to reach our cabinet minister, Mr. Rickford, who actually is from Paris, and get him to reconsider under what other category he might wish to rename this. I think it would be good PR for the ministry, and it would clear up the thing instead of just throwing it all out there and canceling everything.
It was the cabinet minister that notified us that it was canceled. It was he who did that. So that's, governments make decisions, and that's one that's been made. But I'm pleased to hear there is the opportunity to certainly further discuss it. But, Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and you just kind of alluded to it at the end there. What's been canceled here is, in essence, any sort of funding from the government at this point in time. That's not to say that this project can't go through and we can't do it on our own. So again, I think we're, like I've heard a couple times around this table, that the project's dead or it's done. It's not. The only thing that is canceled at this point in time is the funding. So as Mr. Bradley said, go back, do another business case for it, that's fine. But I truly believe that the importance of this, it's not gone, and it will proceed forward.
The problem with this particular project is not making a hydroelectric dam out of it. It's replacing the dam as well, because we know it sat there and sat there and has deteriorated. And we have in this council talked about the horror of seeing it going downriver ourselves on occasion. So it's more than just a hydroelectric dam, but hopefully it'll come through. Because usually people see the right way of doing things. Where were we? Any other member of council? If not, yes, sir.
No, I'm just waiting for the vote.
Okay, so we took the action we did on that item. Has that been approved? No. Motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. I almost got off track there, Madam Clerk. No? Oh, thank you. Communications, there was one additional communication. Our clerk, our CAO, advised of a letter from the new Minister of Municipal Affairs. I also received one, and from Stephen Clark, who I had the pleasure of serving on the AMO Board of Directors at one time in the past. And he has offered to meet with me at the AMO convention, so we look forward to that with anticipation. Thank you. Question, there were no other communications. Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may ask the councillors if they have put their nominations in for Salute to Brant, because I believe the nominations close this week, July 27th?
Who's she talking?
31st. Salute to Brant nominations. I'm asking if all the councillors have thought about it and put their nominations forward, because the nominations close on July 31st. Just reminding councillors.
And yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions by members of council and answers? No questions? Resolutions and other business, nothing listed, which leads us to number 15, in camera. Moved by Councillor Pearce. Is there a resolution out there? Councillor Powell, please.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Pearce, that the County of Brant Council convene in camera to discuss personal matters about identifiable individuals, COU-18-22.
Thank you.
BME Chief Executive Officer, COU 18-26, request for funds and council vacancy.
Pierce, about the appointment. So, do you wish it read, or everybody knows what the appointment is? Pardon? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes that, and we're rush on now to bylaws.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gatler, that bylaws be now read the first time, bylaw 95-18 through bylaw number 108-18.
First reading of bylaws, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gatler, excuse me, that bylaws in the second reading now be read a second time and all clauses of preamble be adopted. Bylaw number 95-18 through bylaw number 108-18.
Second reading of bylaws, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any member of council wish to comment on a bylaw? Councillor Powell. Pardon?
Can I have a clarification?
Clarification of bylaw number,
Okay, it's bylaw 102-18,
102-18.
and it's page
I've-
190.
Professional consulting services.
Consultants.
The question is,
And the question is this the normal procedure here? In other words, if I was buying a car, something got changed, it would be initialed in the margin. So both of us would know who changed that item. The way it sits now, is this a good deal for the county? Or is this the engineer wiggling out of anything? So it kind of leaves it open for discussion as to what these crossed out lines mean. Wouldn't it be better to take those sections completely out of the Bible, the ones that are crossed out? Then it would be cut and dry what we're agreeing to, because I gather this is a legal document.
and that is a question directed to
I know we don't have a lawyer.
CAO, the CAO.
Our CAO is probably the closest thing to a lawyer.
Your worship, through you, this is a standard form contract that we use for all consulting services. Those lines that are crossed out would be if we were going, they're designed for an hourly, like a time, payment for time service. In this case, we have a lump sum agreement for the work. So they become basically redundant, and so we cross them out.
And that's not unusual.
That's not unusual. We've always used a cross-out kind of approach,
Yeah.
so, because it is a standard form contract. I don't, to be quite honest, I don't know why we do this, but certainly the Public Works folks are very adamant about doing the cross-out so that it's very clear to the consultant that you're not provided, you're not going to get reimbursed for expenses. You've provided us with a lump sum cost. And so I see the point in that. So that's how we approach these.
Sufficient? Any other member of council have a bylaw they wish to question? If not, please proceed.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gatler, that bylaws be at third reading now be read a third time, pass, sign, and seal. Bylaws number 95-18 through bylaw 108-18.
Third and final reading of bylaws. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That almost completes the agenda for this evening's meeting. I realize it's too early to go home, but that's your decision, not mine.